Yeah, a long way from a stuttering kid. I didn't get enough love.
Welcome to another edition of the How Men Cry podcast. I go by the name of Dxtr Spits. The How Men Cry podcast, an initiative, is aimed at getting 1,000 men just to talk more comfortably about mental health and vulnerability. And today we have a very good homie. I had the pleasure of jumping on his podcast a couple of weeks ago. I'd like to welcome into the room the homie Festus Ezeli. How you doing, man?
My brother, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
Oh, for sure, man. Just thank you for taking the time. I think both of us deal with crammed schedules, so I probably you more than me.
No, this is great, man. I love the fact that I love what you're doing. I told you that already. I love this platform that you're giving men, and for me, I just think it's something that we can all, in some way, we can add something to. And so, I want to be here to be a part of what you're doing.
Awesome, man. Yeah, and I very much appreciate it. And I think we hit it off in our conversations before, of just the importance of being able to tap into topics like this. And I'll allow you to go ahead and give a good intro for yourself, for anybody who may not know who you are. But I definitely want in that intro for you to chat about your podcast and what you do with it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm Festus Ezeli, Festus Ifeanyi Ezeli. I'm originally from Nigeria, born and raised, came to the United States when I was 15 years old. Was able to pick up a basketball, and that basketball took me to places I never imagined. First of all, to college. I went to Vanderbilt University, but my journey has never been easy, and at each point in my life that I had to start over, it's always led me to somewhere that somewhere way greater, and came to the United States to be a doctor. That was my initial plan, and basketball was supposed to get me to college so I can pay for that experience. And then I fell in love with the game, ended up playing pro, played for a few years. I won a championship with the Golden State Warriors.
Congrats.
Thank you. And then now I'm on the mend. I've been out of the game for a couple of years, had an injury, it took me out. And now I love storytelling. I'm working my way back into playing basketball again. But while I'm doing that, I love telling stories, and I think that it's important for people to share stories of vulnerability. So that's the space I'm in right now as well.
Yeah, awesome, man. And for telling those stories, what do you think? Because you have some really powerful stories, just on your podcast. I was actually going through today. Would you like to just tell folks a bit more about it, and maybe what kind of stories you look for to kind of bring on folks? It's a pretty solid range of people on there.
Yeah. So the podcast, it started off, it's a passion project for me. And it's what happened is a few years ago, I went through a pretty, a tough injury, but tough is light word. I was in a wheelchair for 6 months.
Wow.
And like a few months before that, I was just playing in the NBA championship. So mentally, it was a really hard thing for me to go through. And in that middle of that hole, it's like, you can't walk. I can't go to the bathroom by myself. I can't do any of these things. And I'm used to playing sports for a living, professional sports. So as you go from 100 to 0, and you're looking around like why is my story so different? Looking for motivation, looking for inspiration. And at this point, I started reading books, reading people's stories, understanding that people who are great, people who did great things, people who accomplished anything amazing, they never did it without obstacles. And in reading that, it inspired me to keep fighting. And here I am today. I've been able to play basketball again this year. And it hasn't been easy at all. But the reason why is because I've had these motivations. And so part of that is, reading these stories. It's watching these documentaries. It's understanding like other people have other things they're going through. And it could be somebody else who's fighting an illness, but it could be somebody who's fighting through losing a loved one. But these stories have had a tremendous impact on me. And so I wanted to do the same thing for other people. And I started a podcast. This podcast is called Rebuilding the Beast. It's the idea that your rebuild story actually leads to something much greater. Now, you have no Yeah, right. While you're in the hole, it doesn't look like it. And so I start with my story, but then I also connect to other people who want to share their vulnerable stories as well. You came on my podcast and you shared your story, and it's made an incredible impact on a lot of people who reach out. So that's really the premise of it. It's a blog, it's on Instagram, it's a podcast on Apple and Spotify, and just continue to spread this message that your success story can be someone else's survival guide. That's
I love that, man. I really do. And you know, even just around like through the lens of How Men Cry and a lot of these projects and work, what I've found is like it's so powerful to have somebody present that you feel like you can resonate with, you know, whatever that struggle is. And that's why I like the uniqueness of the different stories that you bring, because I don't think I would ever be able to find or, you know, see a lot of those folks just in terms of like my general searching. You know, it's like you said, you have folks who are you know, recovering from different sicknesses, people coming from like, you know, crazy types of you know, just different like health issues that have maybe slowed their lives at different moments, and you can just see all of this courage within them and within these stories and within how they own it. And like you said, I mean, I really resonate that, like just the ability to just see people
yeah.
and feel not so alone, you know.
Right. So the idea actually came from, you know, me sharing my story. I would share my story on social media. It's like, yo, I can't walk today, but man, I you know, I'm still using these crutches and I'm taking one step at a time. And I'm just staying positive through it all. And or it'll be a day where it's like, man, like I'm really in pain today. And you know, I just kept sharing those stories on my social media. And I realized that people started to resonate with that message. And not even just resonate. They were starting to message me like, yo, I'm fighting through whatever I'm going through because I'm watching you every day. Like I had a former teammate from college who actually called me last week. He tore his Achilles. And this kid is, you know, he's I think about 30 years old now, maybe 29. And he's like, yo, like I stopped playing basketball a few years ago, but I just decided that I wanted to play again. And in my dreams and my working my way to play again, from watching you talking about me, I watch you work and you train and you have this vision that you want to do this thing. You made me feel like I can do it again. And I tore my Achilles. But you know what? Because of what you're doing and the fact that you keep fighting, this Achilles is not a stop. It's not a stop for me. It's a setback. And I'm building the beast right now. When he said that to me, you know, I had, you know, I'm saying it in a very light way. The conversation was much deeper than that. But
Sure.
it was kind of an emotional moment because we were looking at each other. I'm like, yo, like I've been through my own fair share and I'm fighting. But the fact that you can see me in my fight and it makes you want to keep going in your own pain, like, man, that's crazy what our journeys can be. So what I did was I wanted to start a community. Like it's not just about me. There's a whole bunch of other people who can be resources for you in whatever ailment you're facing. I feel like I'm gonna reach that person. I'm gonna reach you.
Yeah.
Just give me time. I will get to what it is that you're facing eventually.
Yeah.
But it's just like I want to give a community to people who are illness survivors who are fighting through domestic abuse, who are fighting through like heartbreak, loss. You know, there's so much that everybody's going through, and even with the uncertainty of COVID and the impact it's had on all of us, there's so much that people are dealing with mentally. So if I can give anybody that push through to keep fighting, just from a community, that's the least I can do.
I love it, man. I love it. Could you chat more about, you know, maybe like what it was like for you, just maybe growing up and maybe how some of your mentality developed to that kind of state, you know, because I think like there's a lot of maturity within that, you know, message and a lot of like I really mean that in the true sense of the word of like really like living living life experience and really growing, because I think it's kind of hard to see and to resonate with messages like that, you know, when you kind of make yourself the whole center of the world. You can really see that you've like grown to resonate and to feel and to empathize. So is that something that you grew up with, or do you feel like you learned that over a process of, you know, grit and in life?
I think I've always been an empath since I was a kid. You know, there's a story that my dad told me once. about me. We went to visit my great grandma at the time, and I go with, this is my mom's mom,
Mm-hmm.
and I take my cousins from my dad's side, and we're all, my family is all close, and so we go visit my great grandma. And while we're visiting her, on the way out, it's customary for her to give you money. It's customary
Mm.
for her to give you money. Like, everybody, here you go, kids. Thanks for coming to visit. This is my parting gift to you. It's almost like a blessing as well.
Yeah.
Well, me as her great grandson, she gave me more than everybody else. And so my dad is telling me this story. He says, I said, no, that's not fair. You can't give me more than everybody else. What about them?
Mm-hmm.
She was like, well, so what I said, my solution was, okay, take back the one you gave me rather than giving me more than everybody else. I'd rather have the same as my cousins. And so instead of doing that, my great grandma gives everybody more.
More. Yeah.
And it's just, that was always my mentality. I think also coming from Africa, like understanding, like, I'm not better than anybody else. I like, there's so much in my life that's just been circumstance, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that I was able to come to America, the fact that I was able to live with an uncle, people came into my life at different points that helped me. And so I have not been able to accomplish all this by myself. Yes, I work hard. Yes, I do. But a lot of people work hard,
Yeah.
but some people just don't have the opportunity. And so in my life, I think growing up in Africa also did something to show me that the playing field is not level for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
There are people in America who are poor, but they have welfare. There are people in Africa who are poor that have not seen food for a week. They have not seen clean water, and they're drinking from the gutter. So there's not a level playing field in the world. And I think with that being my starting point, understanding that this life is, life is really what you make it, but you have to also, when you do make it, you have to create opportunities for other people. I think that's part of the thing that's really driven me to this point.
Yeah, and I love that as well, man. And like I said, I have to be, I didn't have the most simple upbringing in certain regards, but one thing that I do definitely try to keep in mind is exactly what you're saying, of like, there's some humbleness and there's some grounding to say, like, it's a lot of, I've had a lot of fortune and privilege in ways that, like, allow you to move through the world, easier than some. And even just the happenstance of what you're born into, it could be, you could be born a block away and have an entirely different life and, circumstance. And yeah, I got to, I don't think I mentioned it on your podcast, but I actually got to go to Africa. I got to go to Ghana back in 2014. And was working with a literacy camp there with like a few different writers and stuff. And yeah, one of the things that definitely, came up is just the reality of how different circumstances are. And when we complain, I was kind of like making a joke with a buddy. I was like, half of the things that we complain about here within the US, we're complaining and you're tweeting it off of like an iPhone. And you're, laying back in this air conditioned crib. And I'm not saying that people don't have, problems and struggles, but there's definitely a bit of perspective, around like, and like you said, being able to take that amount of privilege and then trying to share that back with folks to help them along the journey. I think that's just really beautiful.
I think the moral of the story of what you just said, it's not even like, I think when people hear that, they think like, yo, like you're trying to shame people, like, yo, don't complain. It's not that. I think it's more like I want to show you that you should be grateful. That's another thing. Like, I want to show you gratitude. I want to show you that, hey, like, there's things in your life that you might not even think of, right? You might not realize that you really need this thing until you lose it. That happens in my life a lot of times, right? Like that's, for several, there's safety that I didn't have when I was growing up. And when I came to America, I'm like, oh my God, like, dude, I have electricity 24/7. I shut my door and that's it. Like, I don't have no problems. There's things about, even the fact that I went through an injury and I was in the wheelchair for 6 months, like, there's something about that makes you realize, you're like, wow, I never even was thanking God about the fact that I could walk. Now I'm sitting in this wheelchair. I'm like, man, I didn't, so it does something for you to understand that, I am blessed. No matter how I see my situation, there's something that I have that people are praying for. And I can be grateful for that.
Yeah, I love that, man. It's all wonderful, man. So how do you relate to the word vulnerability? What does the word vulnerability mean to you?
Vulnerability. I think it's the ability to be open. You know, in my case, it's telling my story, but not from a way of who I think that you think I am, but
Mm-hmm.
from where I really stand. Like this is my story. This is what's going on. And I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, part of the tough thing about part of what makes it difficult to be vulnerable is because we have a mask that we wear, right? I am a fill in the blank. I'm a doctor. I'm a pastor. I am a
Yeah.
father. I am the school valedictorian. So whatever mask it is that you wear, it shapes the message that you tell, because it's like, okay, I can't really say everything about myself because, well, I have an image to uphold. Well, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying you should go and tell everybody your business. That's not the point. But I do think that your true story, the way that you make whatever it is that you make of yourself, right? Your success story, if you told the true story about how it went down, you could help somebody. That's
Yeah.
really the point of this. And so being vulnerable, I'm not trying to say, hey, like go tell everybody, yo, like this is no, but I do believe that if you're speaking from your true self and you're vulnerable, and you could tell people, hey, I made it, but it wasn't hard. Like I think about, like, even on Instagram, like, yo, imagine taking a picture of your red Ferrari. Oh
Mm-hmm.
man, this is stunning. Put a rap lyric or music, whatever, right? But the different impact that it has if you post a picture of your car, whatever it is, call it a red Ferrari again, but you're like, man, I saw this car. Like for me, for example, right? The first time I saw a car, like a Mercedes, was
Mm-hmm.
the guy who owned my school, and that was the image I had of what it was to be successful. The guy who
Mm.
owned my school in Nigeria. I saw a car. It was a Mercedes, and it was a all black car, and on the license plate it said Beast on it. This is where all this, like, like now you
Yeah, yeah.
understand
This
what
is
my story is. It's like, as my life, I saw success, and I'm like, yo, I can't wait to get there someday, right?
mm,
And you're sitting as a kid in Nigeria, like, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to make it. And then you get a break to go to America, and you start doing things, and it doesn't work out at first, but then it starts to work out, and then you start working harder, and then you go to, like, wow, how did I get here?
yeah.
So when you see a license plate now that says Beast, it's like, man, it's because, like, I saw that dream. And so when you hear the story, it's there's more to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my real story, and that's me being vulnerable in that regard. But hopefully, sharing stories in that way. And I'm not an expert at it. Trust me, I still have my mask, and I still have things that I'm trying to work through. But I think that the more I do it, the more I inspire other people to do it. And I think that this thing that we go through when we go through Instagram, and you see everybody's perfect pictures, there's a
Mm-hmm.
thing that happens inside of us. That's the reason why there's so many people who are unhappy. But I'm trying to inspire people to tell their true stories and tell the stories how it happens, so that you can inspire other people instead of making them either feel bad about what they're going through or jealous. You understand, hey, even though you're seeing this really cool thing, I worked hard for it. And if you tell
Yeah.
people that way, I think it'll make a bigger impact.
No, and you're right. I can see that even through just a lot of my own work. Like the more and more vulnerable that I am and just comfortable to talk about what is really going on, you're right. Like people do resonate with it differently, because eventually, the mass part is really, it's just something that is being chased oftentimes, and there's not really like, there are layers to depth. And I think that kind of surface level part, like I feel like I see it with even a lot of men. And I'll bring it back to the conversations that we're having, but like we're so willing to put up these bravados because of how we think it's going to impact somebody. Well, you're going to think I'm powerful if I have this bravado that is powerful, where you're going to think that I'm this and that. And what I've really found is like kind of the slogan line behind How Men Cry is the strength behind vulnerability, because it's, to me, there's so much more strength behind, like, you know, oh, I actually was hurt by this thing, and then I learned to heal from it, and that's why I'm able to, be here, opposed to
Mhm.
like, nothing's ever going to impact me. You know, it's just these
Yeah.
kind of narratives that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And you're right, like people just at their core, I think we're yearning for that realness. It's really not the other stuff that ends up hitting home for us.
Yeah, you go even the level. You go in a level deeper, which is emotions. People have a hard time explaining their emotions. That's why I started with the superficial, which is the things that you can see.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like that's a whole nother level of vulnerability to go into your emotions of saying, yo, I'm healing myself. That's why I really credit you with what you're doing, because this is definitely very powerful.
Oh, thank you, man. So kind of through the lens of vulnerability, and in particular with men, do you think that the world makes it easy for men to be vulnerable? Or what's your, experience with maybe some of the narratives around men and masculinity and your own vulnerability?
No, because I think even for everybody, I think vulnerability is hard for everybody, but men especially, the idea of emotions not being a thing. As a kid, everybody telling you, don't cry because you're this, or, yeah, I've never really understood that. I think I've always been a kind of an emotional dude, man, in terms of, and it's not necessarily crying. It's like I've always been somebody who cares about people. Like I feel what other people are going through, and that's just come from seeing a lot of suffering. But the idea of men not crying, or men not showing emotion and not being vulnerable, I think that's a problem that shows up in different ways in our society. All that, it's healthy. You need to let some of these emotions go. I think I told you the story about my dad. I just lost my grandma a couple weeks ago, and we talked about this on my podcast about talking to my dad. I said, "Are you okay?" My dad says, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine." I'm like, "Dad, are you okay?" He said, "Yeah, I'm cleaning." I was like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm cleaning. I'm doing stuff. I don't have time to think about that stuff." But that's how he was raised. That's the thing that's gotten. I'm not going to sit here and say, "Hey, change your spots today." That's not the point.
Yeah.
That's how he has survived. He's been able to shelve these things. But what I'm trying to teach, as I'm learning myself too, is that these emotions come out in different ways that are unhealthy. Whether it's you trying to control things, or you not being able to control yourself in different regards of, like, there's different ways. I think that the body, the subconscious controls the body sometimes. And so if you're not able to let these emotions out, at least process them. You can't just keep moving and not process your emotions. You can't just keep moving through life and not understanding, like, yo, like what I'm doing is affecting other people. What people are doing is affecting me deeper than what I'm seeing. I think that's why this conversation is important.
Yeah, man, and I see it all over. I mean, that's a very similar life experience and just kind of circumstance that I've had or witnessed, or even the motivation behind a lot of this work. So, and what that plays into is like, or what it makes me think of is just our overall mental states and how we protect and or nurture our mental state. So how do you feel like you keep a good or maybe if I say, what is the word mental health to you, and then how do you nurture or care for your own mental health?
I think it's awareness. For me, the past couple of years, I've really had to dive into this space and try to find ways to make myself feel good.
Yeah.
I realized that basketball was definitely a crutch for me in terms of, it gave me a feeling. There's an adrenaline that comes with playing basketball. There's also a feeling of camaraderie you have with being with your teammates, and it gives you a purpose and identity. And after a while, you start to lose yourself in the game, where you're like, oh man, I don't have this thing now. What do I do with my life? And so then I think this was one of my first times addressing or dealing with that real mental health. It's the way you guys describe it, right? Whether it's depression or any of these emotions, you start to deal with that. And when that comes, you have to find ways to keep moving, or it swallows you. Like, I remember days where I would just wake up and I would look at my legs, and I'm in this like machine. And I have to lay in this machine for 8 hours a day because I can't walk. And then I'm trying to get my leg to, that's the thing that helps the blood move through the legs so you don't get a blood clot. And I just looked at my legs and I woke up. I don't know what happened. I just started to cry. And I'm like, man, what's going on with me? I'm just like, I'm going through these emotions.
Yeah.
The reason why that's important is because I didn't understand that I was really what I was going through. I didn't understand how to deal with these emotions. I didn't have that outlet. I couldn't go anywhere. I had to sit there in the feeling. And so now I was like, wow, I have no distractions. Like I got to sit in that. I can't watch TV because my mind is spinning all these different ways. I can't read a book. I'm agitated around my family all the time. So I started to really dive in, try to figure out ways. That's where meditation came in. I had a friend who was teaching me about meditation. They had me talk to somebody about it, a sports psychologist, even trusting my body again while I was going through this whole process. So there's so much to this mental awareness thing that I didn't even understand that I was going through, but you're just moving through life all the time. There's a Carl Jung quote that says, I think it's Carl Jung, until you make the subconscious conscious, you'll keep moving through life and you'll call it fate. You make decisions moving through life and you call it fate. I think that's how it is. And it's just this idea that some of the things that we go through, we don't even understand why. It's in our subconscious. And so part of mental health is making these things conscious and understanding that we can heal ourselves.
Yeah, man, I really resonate with that, and that's really powerful. One, thank you for even just sharing that and going into that type of depth. Because I could imagine, like I hear quite often that there's these moments in life that almost kind of hit us and have us like slow down enough. And another gentleman that was on the podcast kind of mentioned, he's like, you can run from this stuff really for your whole life. He's like, but you are running. He's like, and eventually it will catch you, and it's not going to be in moments that you expect. But he was basically just saying, when those feelings catch up to you and when you really have to process, he's like, it's a real transformative thing. And it sounds like you really turned toward it, which is just a really beautiful thing. Like that's really amazing that you were able to kind of turn to that. And you didn't run from it. It sounds like you really just sank into, how do I get a hold of this mental space, as well as like really kind of feel through what I have going on. And it's really powerful. And I'm sure that like continues to resonate, with you today, just in terms of how you show up for people.
You gotta keep doing the work, man. And it's not like you do. I think the mental health thing, because it has such a stigma.
Yeah.
We don't even want to say the word mental health, because for a long time in my mind, when you said mental health, you talk about who's a person that's crazy. That's what we see in Nigeria. And so even now we're doing work with kids here in Sacramento. We have a school for special needs kids. And even in the school, like I remember my mom's school in Nigeria. We used to do work with kids there. We still do. About 1,500 kids in Nigeria. And in this school, it's 1,500 kids, K through 12. And when a special needs kid came to the school, we had no facility for these kids. School was 4 stories high, so sometimes they couldn't climb up the stairs. You need a teacher there all the time, so we didn't have the facility. So coming to America, I feel like there is more of a facility for this, and so we were trying to learn. I want to learn how to help people with those kind of problems and those kind of issues as well, so that we can go back to my country. They throw those kids away in Nigeria. I don't know. People don't understand, so that's the stigma associated with mental health back in Nigeria. It's like, once you say that word, it's like, oh, something is wrong with you. Like, let's go lock the person up somewhere.
Yeah.
Trying to dissect that, understanding that there's a lot. There's so much more that we can do to understand our mentals, us ourselves, before we start stigmatizing people. And there's so much help that we can give different communities as well. So this is all one big job that we all need to be doing.
Yeah, and I love that, man. And that's a lot of motivation, behind this work as well too. It's just like, in particular, it's changed a lot from, I would say, when I've grown up to now. There's a noticeable difference in how much more comfortable people are to talk about things like mental health and just a lot of those topics. Like I feel like this is probably about the best period in history that I've seen where, there's still stigma, but at least within the US, it's kind of starting to walk itself back a bit. I have to not spoil myself too much because I know that some of that is because of the network that I've cultivated for myself, and there's still a lot of the rest of the world going on, so I gotta be cognizant of that. But yeah, I mean, I think you and I are, trying to walk in those pathways to kind of change that around. I'm gonna hit a little switch up on the visuals here. So another question for you, and you've shared several of these stories already, even with the passing of your grandmother, which again, my condolences for that. I know that can be a very heavy weight. But would you be, comfortable just talking about like any other time that maybe you've cried or had to show vulnerability?
Time I've cried. Man, pick one. I won the championship. I cried. I lost the championship. I cried. When I moved to the United States and I left my family, and I didn't know that when the next time was that I'll see them again. I cried. Like, there's been so many different moments in my life that I'm happy that I have that gene to do what my body feels in those moments. I'm a big dude, so it's not like you're gonna look at me and think, wow, like I don't know what people call people and they see them crying, but I'm open with those emotions because I feel like it's just healthy, man. It's healthy, and I didn't even understand that back then. I didn't understand that was healthy. If you see somebody holding an NBA trophy and they're crying, like there's something, like you don't understand the journey, like you don't understand what it took. It's telling a story, man. It's like, man, like, dude, I did everything to get here. I did everything, like, and when you lose one, it's like, God, like I did everything to get here as well. So it's an emotion that's so natural, and yeah, I think that there's been some real brotherhoods formed in those moments as well. Whether in the wins or in the losses, especially. Yeah, imagine if your brother comes and puts his arm around you, like, yo, I got you. In those little moments, I think that those has been the real. A lot of bonds have been built in those moments.
Yeah, I love that. And I wish, honestly, I wish it was seen more within, so many communities. Again, I think it is a narrative that is changing, but there's definitely a lot of resistance to it sometimes, because that's what I grew up in, man. I grew up in a lot of maybe not always within my home environment. That wasn't necessarily the narrative all the time, but for a lot of men, growing up in the DC area, and just how the general bravado that was there, and maybe even just some of the networks that I was spending time with, it's just stuff that wasn't acceptable, or shunned upon, or like you said, it's a range of names that can be that you can be called for showing any kind of emotion. But it's so, it just bottles you up, and it really doesn't allow, like you said, this more natural response for your body to just let stuff out. So I really appreciate you speaking comfortably to that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, thanks for giving me a platform to do that. Thanks for creating this platform for men. There's a quote by Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. I don't know if I said that right. I might have butchered that. But he says, good people have to feel like they're trying to empty the ocean with a ladle. And the idea is there's so much work to be done in the world. And when you looking at this ocean of work, ocean of bad stuff, ocean of just like, man, you're holding a spoon and you're looking at it saying, what can I do as a good person? But that's not your job to figure out how you can empty the whole ocean. Your job is to do your job.
Yeah.
Doing your job, you're going to have somebody else who's inspired to pick up their spoon. And somebody else is going to pick up their spoon. Somebody might not have a spoon, but they might have a shovel. And somebody else might have a bulldozer.
Yeah.
And all go, we will make a dent in the ocean. And that's the point. There's an endless amount of work to be done, whether it's mental health, whether it's You know, the way we talk to each other, the way communication, all like there's so much to be done in this world, but the work that you're doing is so important. And I really just want to say, man, good job, and I appreciate you.
No, thank you, man. Thank you. And I've just and I'm just as encouraged exactly from that metaphor. You know, when it's a lot easier when you see other folks taking those strides and speaking comfortably, you know, about it, and everybody picking up their little spoon or ladle or whatever they have. It really does. It makes it a lot easier. Not easier, but it makes it you know, it
Makes
keeps
it
you
worth
guys.
it inspires you to do more. You know,
Yeah.
you're doing something, you're inspiring other people to do it, and then as they're doing it, you're also like, yo, I can't stop because these other people are watching me. You know, so that's
Yeah.
even me being a big brother because they see me and I'm working, and sometimes I want to quit, but I'm like, man, these kids are watching me. I don't want them to get used to that, and then eventually,
Yeah.
kids and the kids gonna be watching me, and then my friends. So this is all one big. If you create a healthy loop, that's where you get to. It's like I got to keep doing the work.
Yeah. Now I have a couple of closing questions for you. Right, kind of right in the vein of what you were speaking about, and I think you kind of answered a lot of it. But what do you think the world could use more of from men?
What could they use more of from men? I think there's a way for us to have. I either say empathy,
Mm,
the ability to understand other people, understand that everybody's going through something, um, and then the ability to communicate. Because we don't, a lot of people don't know how to say what's really going on. You know, because a lot of times when you say what's going on, other people can understand you and they give you a little bit of grace, but we don't know and we just act and we just assume people can understand what's going on in their head. So I've been guilty of that for sure. But yeah, empathy and communication.
I
Well,
love it.
is that one thing?
Yeah. No, I don't have to be. I like to pose that as like an open-ended question. And maybe on the flip side of that, how do you think the world can help men to get there?
Oh man, how can the world help men? I mean, that question is essentially how can women help men? Is that what that is?
Nah, well, because this is so
World.
I like to so that one this one's always tricky, and I add a little caveat every like episode because I understand that I think in general there's a lot that men have taken from the world, but within almost the flip side and more of a healing journey, and whether that's men towards other men, you know, whether that's
What I was
you
gonna
know,
say. I
yeah,
think
because
one of the things that I have gotten to realize, and I keep reminding myself of this every day, is the fact that we're all doing the best that we can with what we have, with the knowledge that we have. We're doing the best. And even sometimes it might seem like somebody is ignorant as hell, or it might seem like some stuff is not right. But it's like people are doing the best they can with what they have.
yeah,
And when you realize that, you understand that when you become elevated in your thinking, when you become more aware in your thinking, your job is not to criticize other people. That's not like you don't know how to like you can't see what they see. You don't have
mhm,
their lens in the world. So your job is to help people, right? You like I said before, you make it and then you pull the next man up. And so that's kind of how I see the world. I see the work that we're doing, the work that you're doing, the work that other men are doing. Is the more that they learn, and this is everything. You're more aware mentally, physically. You figure things out. You just continue to help people, even with material things that you get. When you get something, you figure out ways to help other people and help other people succeed as well.
yeah. Awesome, man. I appreciate that, man. It's great. Just so many gems and a lot of vulnerability and just great talking points through this whole conversation. So I just want to thank you again for your time. Also for bringing me on to speak on your platform. Thank you for coming onto this platform. It's all been really powerful for me personally, even beyond any of this work. So I really want to extend a big thank you to you, and let the folks at home know anywhere that they should find or follow you, or ways maybe they can support rebuilding the beast. Any plugs you want to throw in there?
Yeah, so Rebuilding the Beast is this platform for me is my baby, and so it's a storytelling form on Instagram. It's Rebuilding the Beast. It's rebuildingthebeast.com as a website. Yeah, just please keep supporting and showing some love to the people who are sharing stories. It's not easy being vulnerable, and so to the people who are coming on the podcast or people who are on the page who are telling me, some deep dark secrets, please. I would love for you guys to just show them some love and support and keep encouraging people to keep going and inspiring other people.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. All right, I'm gonna let you go. I just really appreciate again the time spent and just everything you shared today. And we'll be in touch. If I pop out in Cali, I'm gonna come stay on your couch. So, nah, but I actually may end up there before the year's out or something. I will drop you a note, let you know if I pop up in town. But no, man, thank you again. And if you want to find out more info for any of the listeners at home for the How Men Cry podcast or how you can submit a story, you can always visit howmencry.com, find How Men Cry on IG, and definitely go listen to those Rebuilding the Beast podcast episodes, man. It's some really heavy stuff in there, in a good way. So thank you again, man. And to the listeners at home, come through, talk about your feelings.
Yeah. All right, brother.
So, all right, man, you take care.
Yeah, a long way from a stuttering kid. I didn't get enough.